Bears, blog, boys, you know it all, computer, analytic, geeky nerds. Michael Schneider, Tom Cavanaugh, the Bear, blog, boys, know-it-alls, doing some podcast somewhere. Nobody wants to hear you. Geeks, you pencil-pushing, skinny jean-wearing geeks, you.
Coming to you live from our mom's basement, this is the Bears Blog Boys podcast. I am your co-host, Tom Cavanaugh, here with my good buddy and other co-host, Michael Snyder. Snyder, it has been too long. We both have had very busy schedules, and given that last week's game didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, we didn't think it was really worth previewing because, again, the implications didn't really mean much. It decided who they were ultimately going to play in the playoffs, but the one seed was out of the picture. We can touch upon what happened in the last week's game. But, buddy, since it's been so long since we've spoken and talked to the people, how have you been doing?
Good, brother. Excited to start this new year. I think this is our first pod of 2026. So I'm very excited what this year has in store. But most importantly, man, I can't believe we're saying this. I would say I wouldn't have thought this in beginning of the season. Never would have thought the Bears would be the winners of the NFC North, and just thankful that we even have a playoff. This is actually our first podcast. I think we started in 2019 or 2020. First ever podcast previewing a playoff game. So it's been a long ride. This is our very first time ever talking about a playoff matchup in the history of our podcast. So, very grateful. We started at probably the darkest days of this era in this regime, but we came a long way.
Not only is it our first playoff preview ever, but we've never even been close. I think we started maybe in the 2020 off season because they did go to the playoffs in 2020. We didn't do that game. That was when Trubisky. We started right when they drafted Justin Fields, if I'm not mistaken.
So my bad, time to cut you off. I thought we had the 2018 season. Everyone remembers that, right?
Right.
Did we miss the playoffs the next year, or did we
missed the playoffs the next year, and then the COVID year, we were the 7th seed. We played the Saints.
Okay,
that was the Trubisky MVP, Nickelodeon Most Valuable Player game.
And we started that off season the year Justin Fields was drafted, right? Okay,
I think so.
I got it now. So yeah.
So we haven't even been close. At this time of the year, before this time of the year, we were talking about the draft. We were talking about free agency. We were talking about if our head coach was going to get fired. So again, this was a very different territory than we have ever done on a podcast. I mean, we haven't even talked about the draft once or free agency once because the season has mattered this year. Obviously, the Bears are in the playoffs. They're the second seed. Among winning the NFC North, they're the second seed. And look, it's the seeding. Does it really matter? Who knows, right? It's impressive that they were able to finish as the second best team in the NFC. But this is a very close and tight race. I think a lot of the teams are kind of equally equipped to make a run in the playoffs. And we'll talk about where we see the Bears kind of slotting into the NFC. But yeah, I mean, just a total different experience this season. And I'm really excited to do the Bears' first ever playoff preview, the Bears Blog Boys' first ever playoff preview.
Let's get to it.
So, Senator, do you want to talk about last week's game at all? I think that we don't have to talk about the details, but I think it was very much the same kind of scenario of which is what has happened the last 3 weeks. And this kind of ties into the preview and how I think the Bears should approach it differently and where I think the Bears have fallen short, which I think they need to change. Obviously, the defense is not very good, right? They call a style of defense to where they're keeping everything in front of them. They're not allowing explosive plays. It's a lot of zone coverage. It's a lot of cover two. And they're just a very safe, tentative defense. They don't dictate a lot. That also, I think, goes in the run game. They allow a lot on the ground because I don't even think that's necessarily the plan. I just think the players play really tentative against the run. They don't trust what they're seeing. Tremaine Edmonds has been really struggling since returning. I did a deep dive and watched them, and we'll talk about him more in the preview. But yeah, I mean, I think the defense has really suffered at the second level against the pass and against the run. So I think, Snyder, my big takeaway with the issues the Bears have ran into is that obviously game script has not been their friend. Over the last 3 games, they are bottom 4 in time of possession. They average 25 minutes per game of time possession, meaning their opponents have gotten 35 minutes, 10 extra minutes. That is a huge disparaging difference to where the Bears offense, it's really hard for them to get into a rhythm because once they have the ball, you can feel the tension. Like they know they need to score because they're not going to get the ball very often if they continue to rely on their defense. With that also being said, Snyder, they're bottom 4 in the last 3 games in rush attempts. And I think that is where they have gotten away from themselves the most. Look, the Bears passing offense has improved. We've seen it gradually get better throughout the season, but over the last 3 games, they have not ran the ball enough. And that to me will be the biggest difference in this game. If I am the Bears and I win the toss in the very beginning, I'm taking the ball and I'm establishing the hell out of that run. I am running the piss out of the ball because we've seen the Packers have had some trouble defending the run over the last couple of weeks against the Bears in that first matchup. And then obviously against the Ravens. The Ravens ran all over them. They had 300 rushing yards. So that is how I'm approaching this different. I am keeping my defense off the field and I'm going for long drives and I'm running it down their throat. And I'm going to bet on my most highly invested part of my team, my offensive line, and our guru run game coordinator, Ben Johnson, to really establish that run and just take control of the time of possession. I think whichever team can do that in this game is going to come out the winner.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. So I'm kind of like a little traumatized from that Lions game, right? So you come off the week prior against the 49ers, and you know the defense wasn't good, right? You lost 42-38, but it was just like 2 heavyweights throwing haymakers offensively, just going back and forth, and we only came up 4 yards short, but you left that game like, damn, this offense is so much fun. Like we could fight round and round with any heavyweight team. And then the Lions game, man, it really almost traumatized me because they kind of figured it out, right? You could run down our throats. I think they were averaging like somewhere between like 5 to 7 yards per carry. Then you have like your little dink and dumps, and then you realize, oh shit, Bears have a 3 and out, I think, in the first quarter. I think it's the only time they possessed the ball the whole entire quarter. So it was like, shit, did these teams finally figure out that, hey, we could dink dump, average a very respectable yards per carry against the defensive line and just totally control the clock. And the Lions totally figured that out. And then even in the end of the game, when they needed to push the ball downfield, I mean, how calm and collected Jared Goff look. Had Nashawn Wright just in a blender. They were just attacking the middle of the field because, again, like you said, Edmonds has been struggling with coverage. And when you're going against a pro, and this is what you're going to see in the playoffs, right? You're going to see professional, seasoned vet quarterbacks. They're going to be able to stay in that pocket, right? And deliver those strikes in the middle of the field. And I think it brought down a lot of Bears fans. It brought me down personally. It's like, damn, after going shot for shot offensively, then seeing how bad we got dominated with the time of possession, it almost humbled me a little bit. And it was kind of concerning, right? You're not blaming the offense in its whole, but it's like, damn, like this team just got very, very exposed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a lot of good points there that, it's awesome when your offense can go score for score with a team like the 49ers, but when your offense is not perfect, which they were not against the Lions, there was a couple third downs or fourth downs that just didn't go their way. Game of inches type of changes, like nothing you can really fault them for like not executing,
right.
But that one Colston Loveland play, like Caleb delivers it right in his hands. The DB makes a great play like that. And that just happens. But you feel those mistakes or those non-conversions way more with the Bears because their defense cannot get stops. Like exactly. they do a good job of clamping up in the red zone and not, allowing touchdowns. It's very bend, don't break. But the big problem is, like you just mentioned, it's the time of possession. The offense is like rarely, for the last 3 weeks, has rarely been on the field. And that's the big issue here, where it's like, it's hard for the offense to get into a rhythm. It's hard for them to sustain long drives when they're barely on the field. They're not running a lot of plays. So that's the big problem here. And, I'll credit the defense in the fact that they've been good at not allowing touchdowns in some of those games. The 49ers game was different, but like it's still a style of defense you do not want to live in where you're like just living in the red zone. That's not good. Like you want to keep them out of the red zone. The problem is the Bears just don't. I just don't know the solution right now. It's just so challenging for the talent that they have. They can't rush with 4. You don't want to blitz because your secondary is not good enough to leave in isolation. You're just playing a really conservative style of defense, and teams know it. Like teams just absolutely know it. They dial up the plays for it. The middle of the field, I tweeted this out. It is like the Pacific Ocean for teams. Teams are just attacking it at will because they know that the safeties are going to be really deep back. And our linebackers, Jaquan Brisker, they're so quick to play for the run, or not even play for the run, because I shouldn't even say that. They're actually not quick to play against the run, but they get so affected by play action where they just freeze up and the middle of the field is just wide open. So yeah, I mean they just have a lot of problems right now. I don't know what the solution is, because you're not going to get more talented players in a playoff game, right? Like you're getting Kyler Gordon back, which will be huge if he's able to go. Don't get me wrong, especially with Chauncey Gardner getting injured in this one. I doubt that looked pretty rough. I doubt he'll be back in this one. He's been struggling anyway. So you're not going to get like talented players overnight. And like, I just don't know the plan, Steiner. So my suggestion, if I was the Bears, watching back the Packers last game, and I know there's going to be a lot of differences because they had Malik Willis. They probably call it a different game than they would have with Jordan Love. But if I'm the Bears, I'm going to implement a lot of 5-man fronts. I'm going to keep an extra defensive lineman on the field because Tremaine Edmonds ain't doing anything against the run anyway, right? Like, what is he really providing you against the run to where he needs to be out there and you're running 4-man fronts and you have 2 linebackers on the field? I would rather sub him out, put in Andrew Billings at your nose, and then you have Gervin Dexter and Grady Jarrett as kind of your, 3-4 defensive ends / 3 techs. And I'm just going to make sure that they're not going to be able to gradually move the ball in the run game like they have every single time they played the Bears. And then I'll play soft coverage behind it. If they're in a dink and dunk us in the passing game, I think they're going to be more prone to mistakes by doing that than just running the ball gradually down the field like they did against the Bears in that second matchup. The Bears didn't have a single, or the Packers, I should say, didn't have a single stuff in that game. They weren't stuffed at all. They didn't have a single negative run. That cannot happen in this game. You need to at the very least, take away the run game, because if they're able to do that, you know the Bears aren't going to be able to stop the pass. Like I'm just going into the game knowing that, right? So make them one-dimensional. If that's the very least you can do, make them one-dimensional. So that is why I would implement more 5-man fronts. I get Tremaine Edmonds off the field. And if they want to dink and dunk in the passing game, if the Bears want to play super conservative in coverage, I'm okay with that, because I think that they will be more prone to mistakes that way than just handing off the ball. I think there's less that can go wrong in those situations.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. I mean, here, you can't – a lot of people are going to say just blitz, blitz, blitz more, right? You have Kyler Gordon in there. A lot of people are going to say it. But when you watch the first game against the Packers – and we talked about this, is Jordan Love is so good against the blitz because when you combine that, say what you want about Matt LaFleur, I think he's really good with the X's and O's, play designing, but combine that with Jordan Love, his ability to just decisively attack that first read off the blitz, they make you pay for it, right? I think Jordan Love, I think he's actually better against the blitz versus a soft coverage, right? Sure. I do think if you give Jordan Love time in the pocket, and it's so messed up to say, right? Because the goal is never to give a quarterback time in the pocket, because if he has time in the pocket, it's an indictment on your defensive line. But I do think with Jordan Love, the more he has to think, the more he goes through his reads, I think you're more likely him to make a mistake that way versus the mindset of let's blitz him, get him rattled. And that just doesn't work, right? He's very instinctive off the blitz, very instinctive off the first read. And then even when he's a little bit off script, like kind of pedaling backwards or like sideline to sideline, he has that arm talent to actually make shit happen. So it's like, it's not as effective as you think it was. I'd rather, like I said, yeah, you have 5, that makes the matchups up a little bit better for maybe your edge guys or Javon Dexter. And then just letting your other guys sit back in coverage. It makes a ton of sense. I would be surprised if they do that. I don't know if they've done that at all this season, put 5 defensive linemen on the field, but it makes a ton of sense.
The thing that they like to do that's like a version of it is that they'll move Tremaine Edmonds to kind of like defensive end, and then they'll just slide everyone over, which like I watched Austin Booker tried to play like on the interior, and it was a fucking disaster. Like why even do that at that point? Because Tremaine Edmonds, like, you don't need him to play edge defender. Like if that's what you want to do, then just put another defensive lineman in there. And that's kind of what I come back to. It's like, if you watch him play, he's so slow to fill against the run. Like he's just so slow, and he's always blocked. Like there's always a hat on him. Yeah, does he do a good job sometimes eluding blocks 5 yards down the field? Sure, but we need you to get in the backfield and make plays. Like if you're going to be, for all the negatives that it comes with Tremaine Edmonds, there better be some offsetting positives. And I could say that with like a lot of the second level players, Jaquan Brisker too. Like what do you do out? Like what do you do positively? What impact are you making? It just seems like he's always in retreat mode. He's always making plays down the field. It's like, if you're going to be volatile and give up some mistakes, that's okay, right? In some defenses, but you need to make positive plays to offset that. And that's just not happening. It's just not happening across the board, down the spine of the defense. And I like what you said, Snyder. It's for adding that extra defensive lineman. I think it does help with matchups, because if you watch, I would say all 3 of the interior defensive linemen right now, whenever they have to go up against double teams, it's over. Those guys are going right out of their gaps, and they're not holding up. Gervin Dexter plays way too high against the run game.
Yep.
Andrew Billings has not been that good this year. He's not been what they wanted and signed him to be, as just a space eater being hard to move. He's never been a guy that like controls blocks at a really high level. He's got short arms. He's stubby. But at the very least, you should just be, a rock in the middle of the field, just hard to move. That has not been the case this year. And then Grady Jarrett has never been a good run defender. He's really small, so he gets blown out of gaps when he gets double teamed. So, if, like we mentioned, if you're playing with 5-man fronts, that's a hat on a hat across the board. It's really hard to run duo, which the Packers run a ton of, and it's really hard to run zone blocks as well. So I think that would be a nice adjustment. And I would just rather the Packers live in a world where they're quick gaming me to death and they're check downing me to death. Because if that's all they can do, then I'll live with that. Because outside of that, there's really nothing the Bears, I think, can do on the other end to kind of force the issue. Like you said, you're not going to blitz Jordan Love. We saw how that went in the first game. It was a disaster.
Yeah,
you're not going to do that again. And then you're not going to play man coverage against them either. So I really think their hands are tied. But that's probably the one adjustment I would look into to see if you can make them more one-dimensional.
Exactly, right? So you have 5 defensive linemen there. You assume you're going to be a little bit more effective against the run, putting them in more passing situations. That's forced Jordan Love to just think a little bit more, right? Not let him play so fast, right? Go into that first read. And I guess my point is, when they're leaning more towards the pass and there's nothing going against the run, that time of possession, right? That's what it's circling back to, right? Now you have more incompletions, or, because they know the run game is not really going anywhere. That's how you kind of get those, that time of possession back, get those possessions back, where maybe the Bears could, in one quarter, possess the ball more than once.
Yes.
But if not, it's like you said earlier, when you have a 3 and out, when you don't convert on that 4th down, you feel that so much more when a team is just dominating that time of possession. You can't get in a groove. You can't run the ball 20 plus times. I think going back, I've seen a stat, Tom. I think the past 2-3 games we've rushed the ball like closer to 15 times. Then you go back to the Eagles game where we rushed it, a little closer, like 30 plus or something like. There was a huge disparity. I forget exactly what it was, but it's because of that game script, because of that time of possession. We can't do what we're doing best. Early in the season, mid-season, we were, rushing for 200 yards a game. Yep. And, you could have Caleb just kind of do his thing. We're not even allowed to, operate our best weapon in the arsenal because of the game script.
Absolutely. And it's not like they're not running the ball well in this stretch. It's just they're not doing it often enough. If you look at the
Right.
statistics, they're 10th in EPA per rush in the last 3 games, and they're 7th in success rate. And the success rate part is the important one, in my opinion. Like, yes, do you want to be explosive? Do you want to create explosive plays in the run game? No doubt about it. You definitely, I'm not saying to like go away from that and like just intentionally have longer drives, but the success rate is what makes this offense work. It's the efficiency, right? The Bears are not a down the field explosive team. They are a gradually chunk plays explosive team. So the success rate is really important. If you're efficient in the run game, that's when you can stay ahead of the sticks. That's when you can avoid 3rd and longs. Yeah. That's when you can run play action. And the Bears have been 7th in the last 3 games in efficiency. And the Lions were a good run defense. And whenever they went to the run game, they were able to run the ball. It's just they're always playing catch up. That's what has been the story the last 3 games. And I just don't want to put them in that situation where they have to do that, where every single drive is that much more meaningful because you know your defense is going to be on the field for most of the game. I don't want to put them in that situation. I know it's asking a lot of the offense that they have to carry so much of the load, but that's just the reality of the team, right? Like that's how they're built. Their main investments. If you just look, I don't want to go over and open a can of worms and just look at how the team was built, but their main investments outside of a couple highly paid free agents and the Montez Sweat trade, their highly paid investments are on the offense, right? The interior offensive line, Darnell Wright, Caleb Williams, obviously the receivers. So they're going to, if the Bears really want to make a run, and I think they're favorited right now against the Packers by 1 point, but we'll just say upset the Packers, they're going to have to dominate the time of the possession. That's just, I don't think they can win this another way unless they get really lucky like they did the last game and some things go right for them at the very end, the way that they were able to close that out. But I don't want to go into this game with that game plan, needing things to go your way. I want to bring the way I think the Bears can dictate this game and take control is what they were doing in the second half of the first Packers game, where they were just running the hell out of the ball. They were play actioning. They were always keeping the Packers defense off their toes. That's where they're at their best. That's where they can control this game.
Most definitely, Tom. And it's actually kind of like interesting to say, right? I feel like even since that first Packers game, Caleb has been a lot better, just being very efficient, being more decisive, throwing with anticipation, just kind of trusting his arm and throwing in those like deep windows, knowing that he can just throw the ball on a laser to like some of his wide receivers. I think he's been targeting Colston Loveland a lot more, which has been helping. I think he's been a lot better since that game, right? But like we're trying to say is you haven't really gotten to see that combined with like a rushing attack that we had against the Eagles. They're like, because we can do that still, right? It just hasn't been in the script because of the time of possession. But if you can get that going, right? Early on, you possess the ball first, and then you get that run game going, and then you take Caleb into play action, combine that with how he's improved since that, or maybe like even a continuation of him against the 49ers, right? If you combine that with a very efficient run game where you're controlling the script and you're just dominating and moving the chains early on, combine that with Caleb, that's how you're going to come away and win this game. You have to be balanced. And I think that Caleb has really shown his ability as being just a way more complete quarterback, being way more confident. I just want to see that combined with the rushing attack because it could be so deadly.
Yeah, and I think it's nice to see that the Bears have been able to respond in situations where they aren't neutral and they can, drop back and pass. That's been good to see over the last 2 weeks that, it wasn't perfect last week. But, against the Niners, we talked about their passing game. That was probably their best performance. But even in moments against the Lions, you definitely saw that Caleb and the passing offense was able to take care of business when they needed to and put the Bears back in position to win that game. Some things don't go their way and the Lions are able to close it out, obviously. But that's obviously nice to see, but you don't want to head into this game needing to be put into those situations, especially against the Packers, where I think obviously their defense loses a ton of teeth with no Micah Parsons. We saw that in the second matchup. They're not the same. We've seen that over the last 2 games where the Packers have played. Their pass defense is not the same without Micah Parsons. But what they will do is they're going to scheme it up on those 3rd and longs, right? They're good at that. They're good at scheming up free rushers, no matter without Micah Parsons or not. Jeff Hafley is really good at what he does in terms of disguising the front and making sure he throws off your protections. So you want to avoid those situations. I still thought, even though the Bears were better at, maybe not blocking it up, but I guess I thought they had a better plan in the second game against some of those looks. I still thought those looks gave them issues. So you definitely want to see those cleaned up. But how do you avoid being put in those situations altogether? You stay out of 3rd and long. And that's the nice thing about the Bears, Snyder. When you go back and look at how the Ravens performed against the Packers, they obviously ran all over them, but they did it right up the gut. It wasn't anything crazy. It was a bunch of inside runs. They were first in EPA per rush on inside runs that week, and they were 3rd in success rate. They had a success rate of 57% on inside runs. So that was more than half of their plays were successful whenever they just ran right at the Packers. And the Bears don't have Derrick Henry, right? But they have a better offensive line. They have a better run scheme. These are all messages to me, are all signs that you will be able to run the ball. You just need to be in position to do so.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. We've been talking about that the whole entire episode. It's just you have to, and it was tough, right? I said it earlier. I'm very traumatized from that Lions. I don't think I've ever seen a Bears game. It's been a long time at least, where we just got totally just didn't have the opportunities to even be on offense. That first quarter went by so I felt like I blinked my eye and the first quarter was over and there was just nothing exciting that the Bears did because of that. I have never seen that, and we just need to find way. Like, we can't have your first possession can't be a 3-and-out, right? You can't have your first series out and you have a false start, or you have DJ Moore lining up wrong and now it's 1st and 15. Like, because of the way your defense is built, the way that the Lions kind of figured us out there, or kind of figured out the recipe, you have to be rock solid on first downs and on like your opening drive. You have to come out, it sounds so like obvious, but you have to come out like guns blazing, and you have to get up early, right? You have to be up 2 possessions as early as you can and force the Packers to pass, or, just put them in situations maybe where they're a little bit more aggressive.
Sorry, we just got a Snyder. I totally agree with you. You need to force the issue. And this is the only way, in my opinion, the Bears can force the issue, because they can't force the issue on defense, right? Like, so you have to be able to do that on offense. You have to be able to do that with using the game script against the Packers. So I am right there with you. That is the approach I would take. Our guy DBF, he said, "I'm curious on your thoughts about the lack of play action called against the Lions last game. Felt like the game plan was much different compared to what the season has looked like after the bye." I really think that's just because they are playing catch up, right? When you're playing catch up, you drop back and pass. That's just kind of the way it is. Was the game ever out of hand to where, the defense couldn't viably buy into your play action fakes? Probably not. Like, they probably could have called more play action, but I agree with you in the fact that it's been weird to see the Bears get out of their successful formula. I don't know if that's because they just feel like they need to score points all the time, and passing is a faster way to do that. And you're not using the run game, you're not using the play action game. But this team's formula throughout the season, when they've been at their best, they've been able to run the ball. They've been able to play action off it. That's what they do well. That's what this offense is built around. They have definitely gotten away from that formula, and I think that's what's led to some of the more disappointing results with this team over the past couple of weeks. And I think it's going to be the key in this game, because, again, we'll talk a little bit more about the defense, but like, you're just your hands are so tied on that side of the ball, and it's not on offense. Like, you can basically have success on whatever you want to do. It's just, you need to commit to the run, in my opinion, to take control of this game, to really be in command of that game script.
Yeah, and I can't stress that enough, is really establishing that run, keeping your offense on the field, because something we didn't even mention is in that Lions game, man, it really looked to me that Jalen Johnson is just not fully healthy, man. Like,
Yes.
he did not look good. Nashawn Wright, you love the interception numbers. You love the forced fumble numbers. Like, you love the story overall. But, man, when he is left on an island, man, he has been getting cooked on those, like, double moves from those shifty wide receivers. Just totally gives up the middle of the field off that, like, second move. So, like, that's another thing. You combine that with the defensive line, and then, you're kind of shaky in the secondary. It makes the matchup a little bit scary, right? So it's like you have to kind of lean on your offense to keep the defense off the field, and like that needs to be the script.
100%. I think the Bears tried to play some man coverage last week, and it just went poorly. And that's such a good point too. Like that we haven't talked about on third down. This team can't play man. Like they just can't do it because they don't generate pressure with 4. So the quarterbacks have all day, and their corners, like you said, Jalen Johnson doesn't look healthy right now. Nashawn Wright gets absolutely torched in man coverage. It's such a hard dilemma because he's had such a great season in terms of forcing turnovers, but like to me, Tyreek Stevenson's the better player. Like I would play Tyreek Stevenson over Nashawn Wright. I know this coaching staff loves Wright. I know Al Harris was with him in Dallas, so that probably won't happen. It sounds like I think Dennis Allen talked about that yesterday. But if you do want to run man coverage, there's no question to me Tyreek Stevenson's a better player to do that. Maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable with Kyler Gordon coming back because Chauncey Gardner-Johnson couldn't play man coverage either. He got cooked up a bunch against the Packers and the Lions. So yeah, they're in a really rough spot. And once you play a lot of zone on third down, you're just going to give them up. You're going to give up the conversions, right? Like that's just what's going to happen. There's a reason why teams play man on third down more than any other coverage is because they're going to pass and you want to make things tight to get stops. The Bears just can't do that right now. And I wouldn't want to do that against the Packers because Matt LaFleur will dial it up, and that's when you give up the big play. So, yeah, I mean, they're just in a really tough spot, and I obviously want the Bears to win, but when we talk about the offseason, I mean, it's going to be all about how in the world are the Bears going to fix this defense?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of tough conversations. You just need like a total retool. And again, I know this isn't the criticize Ryan Poles episode because we could probably talk for hours and all day about that if you want to go into an intricate detail. But man, you have, I think, the 5th most expensive defensive line. You have so many round 2 picks invested into the defensive line and just as a whole. There's a lot of resources on this defense because that's primarily what he was focused on in the early days because of the Matt Eberflus, and it's a lot of his guys that are still stuck there. And then you hired a defensive coordinator to had a very similar scheme, as far as like your 4-3, a lot of guys there. So you almost had to, because you're tied behind your back too, because hire that guy because of all of the defensive investments that were similar to that scheme. And I think it's all of that is showing. I hate to point the finger on Dennis Allen, but he hasn't. I know his hands are tied behind his back. He's doing what he can do, but I wonder if you just need a whole overhaul in scheme, defensive coordinator, and just totally different players to just do something totally different and try to hire guys that are like just nasty schematically, that they could make the most out of. Maybe not the best unit, but they're nasty with the X's and O's, nasty with the blitzes, nasty with the disguises, because I just think this 4-3 bend but don't break. I hate the philosophy of it, and I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but it's just we're feeling it right now, and you can't really do too much to overcome it. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And again, I don't want to really harp on the defensive struggles because we've done that a lot over the podcast, and we'll definitely get into the nitty gritty of it in the offseason on where what the Bears can do. But yeah, it's worth mentioning, Sider. Like this is not, while they are not talented, they're not very disciplined either. Like there are issues beyond just the talent where like guys are blowing coverages or not where they need to be. And that's kind of been an issue all year. So Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have some really difficult discussions, like you just alluded to, and for Dennis Allen, like again, I don't. This is a preview episode, so again, I don't want to talk big picture, but like I think he is a good defensive coordinator. I think he is trying different things to make this work, but he might just be a defensive coordinator that needs really talented players for his style of defense, and to do that in one offseason could be challenging. If you look at a defense like the Vikings, you don't like sit there and be like, oh, they have all of these amazing players. Like, yeah, they have Jonathan Grenard, they have other players, but it's really like they're more of a sum of their parts type of defense. And Flores is really, really good at what he does. I don't think Dennis Allen is that type of defensive coordinator where he's like elevating a situation. So it's worth mentioning. Those guys aren't just like growing off trees where you can bring in a new defensive coordinator in. But yeah, I mean, they might just need, like, Dennis Allen just might need an offseason to maybe just change what he is, what he does. Because again, too, Snyder, we'll talk about this later in the offseason. They like a very specific type of defensive lineman. I think you're really limiting your options if that's what you're going for, and that could be more of an issue. But we can definitely talk about that. I just wanted to bring up Tremaine Edmunds over the last 3 weeks, Snyder. He has a tackling grade of 45, a coverage grade of 47.9. He's allowed the most receptions, second most receptions behind Devin White, a guy who signed for a veteran minimums deal. He's been targeted 6 times, allowed 16 catches for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has a passer rating of 148.2. Reminder, the perfect passer rating is a 158, so it's only 10 points below when he's been targeted. He's been absolutely abused in coverage, an absolute liability, and this was Ryan Poles' biggest at first. His first big free agent signing, and remember, they got rid of Roquan Smith for Tremaine Edmunds too. So, again, a ton of problems, right, across the board, but like that is a major issue. One of your most highly invested player, he's the red dot for other teams. We're going to go after this guy, and that's just a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem. I'll make this point really short and sweet. So I remember when they traded Roquan Smith and they signed Tremaine Edmunds, Ryan Poles basically said Tremaine Edmunds' length and fit in the system was more valuable than Roquan Smith, who no doubt was the better player. Ever since that stuck with me as, okay, you're guilty of the scheme versus just using your eye talent on the better football player. So that one always sat really wrong with me. But why that is important in this matchup is, like you said, all those numbers are damning against Tremaine Edmunds in coverage. My other issue is TJ Edwards. And I like TJ Edwards. I think he's very instinctive, high IQ, good football player. But where he gets exposed, and I know it was against Jahmyr Gibbs last week, when there's a running back and he's one-on-one in open space against a running back, he is getting routed up all the time. I remember, I think the worst example was the Bengals game against Chase Brown. He just totally cut in the middle of the field, and TJ Edwards was just put on skates. You combine that with Tremaine Edmunds, like, man, it just really, really becomes an even more liability in the middle of the field when you are attacking those 2 linebackers in space. So yeah, I mean, that's another thing that in both of those investments at linebackers, just giving what's at stake, it is pretty concerning. I think I get why they were signed. I think they raised the floor. TJ Edwards is a floor guy, high IQ, instinctive guy. But when you're going against these premier teams in the playoffs and you're getting exposed the way they are, it's like, hey, okay, floor guys, fine, but now your goal is you're winning to win divisions, to make deep playoff runs. You need to prioritize different things with these linebackers.
For sure, especially how often they play too, like and how often they're asked to cover. Like, this isn't like the Vikings where they're blitzing all the time. Like, this is you're like a traditional linebacker. Like, so you need to, those need to be effective parts of your game and coverage, and you need to be comfortable dropping into zones. And like, clearly they aren't. And Edwards is better at that for sure. But yes, Snyder, the teams, when they're able to get him manned up or in isolation, it's over, right? Like it's bad. And luckily, I don't think the Packers really have any of those players to really take advantage of that. So in this matchup, I don't think that element will matter. But I think where Brisker and where Tremaine Edmonds struggle is when teams have a lot of eye candy, they do a lot of motion, they play action. They're just so affected by it, right? Like they do not do a great job of reading their keys. Like in those type of situations, you're supposed to look at the offensive linemen. Are those guys coming forward or are they staying in to protect? Okay, that will tell you kind of what to do next. And they just don't. They're really easy to get out of position. And honestly, going back and watching that game, Snyder, the Packers could have had like more yards. Like there were more. Like there was a play. I think it was a pass to Luke Musgrave that Malik Willis threw, and it was like a really good throw because it was like in between a zone. Christian Watson the other way. Brisker totally. It's cover two. Brisker's the half field safety, so he's supposed to get depth. It's disguise. He comes all the way down to play the run because they play action, and Christian Watson is running free down the field. I mean, like a 70-yard touchdown if Malik Willis sees him. Luckily, he doesn't. But you're telling me if that wasn't Jordan Love, that's probably a huge touchdown, right? Yeah. So, like, these are the plays we can't have. We can't. If you're not very talented and you're not going to be able to force the issue, okay, that's one thing. We can't make mistakes. We can't be out of position, right? We can't beat ourselves. And I just don't have enough confidence right now to say that won't happen in this game because it's happened all year.
Yeah, and it's a scary thing, right? You said that about Jordan Love. It almost gave me like a flashback to like PTSD. Like he has a beautiful deep ball, right? Like his placement on the deep ball, he's very, very accurate with his deep ball. So like, and that's the thing, right? Like I said earlier, like, okay, you do want to give Jordan Love time to just like think about it, go through his reads, because that's when he tends to make mistakes. And I think he's been guilty of throwing more interceptions in that scenario. Yeah. But then the catch-22 is like, hey, now you're giving him some time to cock up and throw up that deep ball. So it's like almost is like kind of it's just concerning, man.
It's 100% concerning, but I think the fortunate part is like unless they totally allow the time of possession to be flopped, like the Bears offense can hang with. Like if they're on, which hopefully they are on, we can't have the slow starts that we did the last game, I would say, in the Packers game. Like I don't think you can do that where you're just waiting until the last, to the fourth quarter to really turn it on. We know this Bears offense can hang with anybody, even in the passing game. So, and they're getting Rome Odunze back, hopefully, which it looks like, unless anything goes wrong in terms of if he aggravates. So, I mean, they'll have their full arsenal of weapons, and the Bears passing offense has been really good the past couple of weeks. So, I think there's reasons to be encouraged about that. If, plan A goes out the window and the Bears do kind of have to pass their way into the game or they have to go score for score with the Packers, they've shown that they can do that, at least against the 49ers, who you could argue the 49ers offense is better. And that's an encouraging sign. So, and it's also, Senator, we haven't even brought up the weather in this game is supposed to be insane. There's supposed to be a lot of snow in this game. I think it's supposed to be like one of the worst weather games they're anticipating. So that will also throw a wrench into things. I mean, I think it's a little bit overrated. We've talked about that before. Precipitation can be kind of overrated in terms of how it affects the offense. But if the wind is going, you really never know how the weather can affect these games in late or in mid-January. So that will also be something to kind of monitor.
Yeah, so I'll actually be at that game. Hopefully not freezing my ass off. It's my first Bears playoff game. I don't think I've been at like a snow game like that. But yeah, I mean, I am pretty fired up about that. But yeah, I mean, I love that Caleb. I think what was that one game, Tom, where it was like, I think it was that Packers game, where you just seen the velocity on his balls like not affected by that cold weather. And that's why you just love to have Caleb for these game conditions.
100%. I'm looking at the wind right now. There could be some decent wind, gusts up to 27 miles per hour. I think anything over 30 is like when you need to be concerned. So that's worth mentioning. That's worth monitoring. But yeah, I mean, the weather should be interesting in this game. And Senator, I think both these quarterbacks are built for the elements. They both have strong arms. I would think from a velocity standpoint, Caleb probably trumps Jordan Love in that regard. Like he can really put some zip on the ball. We know Caleb has a very strong arm, so I don't think that'll affect them too much. But if hopefully, Snyder, hopefully the snow and just the cold weather will be like the ultimate sign for Ben Johnson to run the ball,
Yeah.
right? This is why you build such a perfect run game when you're in the NFC North, when you are going to be playing games in Chicago and in Green Bay, and anywhere else in the Midwest that's outside, because you have this running game to lean on in the cold weather when things do get kind of tougher to pass. You have this really dynamic run game to where you can just kind of ground this game out and take control of it from that way.
Yeah, very, very true, Tom. And that would be sick, right? If we could just run it down their throats, it's snowing and everything. I can already hear it. If the Bears come out on top, they'll say, "Screw the dome" when we're staying at Soldier Field. That's gonna last for several decades on that mindset there. But no, I mean that would just be totally fun to see if we could just have a game like the Eagles where we just rush down their throat. That is how you control that time of possession, right? That's how you keep their offense off the field, and they're not consistently dinking, dunking, moving the chains on us. It's like this is going to be one where the better offense is the best defense. I know that's kind of corny to say, but it's that's like the formula for the Bears in this one.
100%, and it's a good point that like the Packers probably could dink and dunk their way down the field like most teams have been able to do against the Bears defense. But let's say the Bears take the possession first, they score on their first drive, and the Packers go 3 and out or don't get any points their first drive. That's when when the thought enters in the back of their mind, okay, we kind of need to score now. Now we can't really afford to dink and dunk and just like try to run the ball and gradually keep control of it, because now we have to score. Now we have to keep up. And that's when you force mistakes, right? I think that's when you get Jordan Love. We saw that in the very first game, that interception. It's a disguise cover 2 look, and he wants to rip an in-breaker down the field on a 3rd and long. It's an interception. Like those are the situations to kind of put your weakness of a defense in advantageous situations. And that's kind of what you want to aim for. And I think that starts by taking control of the time of possession, taking control of the game script on offense. That will be the key to this game. So the last thing I want to say before we give our final predictions, I'm hoping last week was a very important lesson for Ben Johnson you cannot trust your defense to get you the ball back in pivotal situations. There was a very famous, not very famous, very viral clip showing him mouthing, "We should have gone for it." You can't have that happen in the playoffs. You need to go for it. In any situation where it's close, you better be going for it. Weirdly enough, the Bears have been pretty conservative this year on 4th down. That can't happen in this game. I'm not trusting my defense worth a damn, not against the Packers offense. Any type of close situation, you need to come out. In order for the Bears to win this game, you're going to have to win on the margins, right? I think that's true for both teams. And I'm going to take my chances. I'm not going to be having that conversation where coulda, woulda, shoulda. No, you need to go for it. In any situation where it's close, I don't care. You better be going for every single 4th down.
And that goes beyond just like kind of moving the chains, right? I think when it's 4th and goal, you better go for it.
Yes.
I think you got to play the strategy of it, right? Like if you have a chance, so like let's say you're up 4 points, right? And it's 4th and goal. Don't settle for the field goal, right? To still only be up 1 possession, right? You have to play the numbers game. Is like, hey, I need a touchdown here to go up 2 possessions, because if my defense does give up a touchdown, I'm still up, right? And then I can kind of control it from there. Same thing when you're going for 2, right? If you're can go for 2, and instead of it being a 8-point lead, get the 9-point lead, right? Make it 2 possessions. Like in that situation, be aggressive all the way across the board. Just keep it to where, hey, if you have the opportunity to go up 2 possessions and make that hill even steeper for that offense, that's going to be the best way to help your defense, right? So you got to be aggressive all across the board, not just moving the chains at midfield, but don't settle for the 3 points on that 4th and goal.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. They need to play with their foot on the Packers' necks. Like they need to play for kill shots. That's what you need to do.
Exactly.
And I think that I'm hoping last week was a good lesson there to not take the conservative route, because what did it get you, right? It got you exactly where you do not want to be, where you're on the ropes and the ball's out of your hands, right? You can't control what happens next. Your defense that has been able to got marched all over throughout the game is now what you're relying on. And that is just not a situation that this Bear. If you got the Texans defense, okay, that's one thing, right? Then, okay, I understand you punting sometimes. I understand you not listening to the analytics. If you trust your defense that much, okay, power to you.
Yeah.
The Bears aren't this team. They can't trust their defense to that extent. So you want to live and die with the strength of your team, and that is the Bears offense. All right, Snyder, let's give the people what they've been waiting for. You're going to this game, so that's awesome, and I'm really happy for you. But unobjective take, who do you got winning this game and why?
I think the Bears do win a close one. I do, as much as we've talked about the defense this episode, I think our horses, our Ferraris on offense are the game changers here, right? This is playoff football, and you lean into your special talent, right? I think Caleb Williams is a special talent. I think Rome Odunze, in man coverage against this secondary is gonna remind everyone the receiver that he is. Getting him back is gonna be huge. And then since Odunze's been out, you've seen Colston Loveland step up. You've seen Luther Burden step up. These are game-changing players. Luther Burden, with the ball in his hand, has the ability to take it for 6 every single time. That's how special he is, right? And if you are in a script, and I think Ben Johnson is, when you can combine all those weapons with your effective run game, and you could do that in volume, and then you get the play action going, and then you feed those Ferraris that I'm talking about. I think that's how the Bears can control this time of possession. And I'm not even talking about all the special things Caleb could do. I think our star power on the offensive side of the ball, combined with Ben Johnson, combined with our offensive line, is enough to take care of business against this Packers team. I always give credit to Matt LaFleur as a head coach. I always give credit to Jordan Love as a quarterback. I'm not saying that they're not going to be effective. I think this is going to be a game that is high scoring. But again, I think the Bears just have so many more options offensively that they hopefully and should be able to max that defense. I don't think this Packers offense is as good as the Lions or the 49ers. So I think it's a favorable matchup in that.
Yeah, I'm with you. We don't even talk about in the second Bears Packers matchup. The Bears didn't even have Luther Burden. They had DJ Moore, who has been up and down the season, we'll say, or hasn't been as featured as maybe you'd want him to. And we've seen over the past, from the first half of the season, the offense really flowed through Rome. For the second half of the season, the offense has really flowed through Lovin, like you said, and Luther Burden. Now you're going to have all those guys, right? And I'm hoping the lessons the Bears have learned over this last couple stretch, and I'm glad they've gone through some adversity. They've lost some close games. I'm hoping they've learned from that. We brought it up at the beginning of the episode for those who are just joining us now. Hopefully the Bears learned the way that they're going to win this game is by establishing the run and really getting that run game going and staying on the field on offense. If they could do that, I really like their chances. I do think the game's going to be close. I do think the Packers are going to be able to score. There's no doubt about that. I just don't want them to go out the way the Bears have gone out in the Lions game, and then almost in the second Packers game where they're barely on the field at all. They have to bet on, or I guess count on, the Packers making a couple of mistakes that allowed the Bears to get back into that game. Hopefully they avoid that situation. I think from a game plan perspective, they need to go into this establishing the run, staying efficient on the ground, keeping their defense off the field. That is how I think the Bears win this game, and I'm thinking that's the game plan they're going to come out with. Now, what they do on defense, your guess is as good as mine. I don't think they're going to be really aggressive. I don't think they're going to blitz a whole lot. I don't think they're going to play a whole lot of man coverage. And then they're going to kind of go into it with the same way they did in that second Packers game, because that's kind of the only formula that has been respectable for this Bears team. But Will they do some different things on early downs? Will they play more defensive linemen? That would be my suggestion. I think they should play more 5-down fronts to at least just get rid of the run game and make the Packers think and dunk. And then if the Bears go up early and they do control the time of possession, I think that's when you're putting pressure on the Packers to try to throw the ball down the field. And if you are playing safe coverages, then that's when the Packers are more prone to mistakes. That would be my formula. That would be my game plan. We'll see if that unfolds that way. But I do think the Bears, I'll say it now, I do think the Bears will win this game, a very close game. I'll say 21-17, a Bears W. Maybe there'll be more points. There probably will be more points. Maybe I'll change my answer. I'll say 27-24. I'm thinking this game gets decided by a field goal. But I'll also say too, Steiner, we also got to remember, I know there's no guarantee the Bears will ever be in this position, right? Like that's always worth mentioning. Like they're in a very good position. Second seed, NFC North champions, home playoff game. Probably going to have, if they make it all the way to the NFC championship, you'll probably have 2 home playoff games, which is a great position to be in. But this is year 1 of the Ben Johnson era, right? And this is a very flawed team, the Bears. Mm-hmm. I think there's way more pressure on the Packers. And I get the Packers have reasons to why they might not win this game. They're missing a lot of their best players, no doubt about it. But the Packers really need to start doing stuff, right? It's been a while since they've been close to a Super Bowl, and they were the team to beat in the NFC heading into the season. They're not even the NFC North champions. If they go out by the Bears, I think that's a very black mark on Matt LaFleur's resume, Jordan Love's resume, and just kind of this Packers regime. I think all the pressure is on Green Bay to win this game.
Very well said. I mean, yeah, if the Bears do beat the Packers, there's already conversations. I think Jay Glazer already announced it and tweeted that, like, Matt LaFleur is not safe, right? And it's very, I think, really dependent on this playoff game. And just circling back, like you said, like, you talked about Ben Johnson not going for that 4th down. Like, you almost forget, like, he's a rookie head coach, right? Yes. And he's still growing, right? And he seems like he learned from his mistake. You're happy that this had happened against almost it ended up being a meaningless game against the Lions.
Yep.
But what a great lesson learned in that game to go now use that lesson into this playoff game against the Packers. Hopefully he learned his lessons. Hopefully he learned to not trust his defense. Glad it happened on week 18 versus, this upcoming playoff game, right? So, again, you know what Matt LaFleur is. You know where he's flawed. You know where this Packers team is flawed. At least Ben Johnson is still growing. And if he can be the reason that Matt LaFleur gets fired, Tom, I would be celebrating, like, so much. Because you know how much I fear Matt LaFleur. I've said it consistently throughout this podcast. I fear him because of the offensive ability, how he makes playing quarterback easier for Jordan Love. So I'd be damn happy to get him out of the NFC North.
If they fire Matt LaFleur after this game, I mean, that would just be the most ridiculous thing ever. Like I would be, the team would have had to like totally give up on him because I like you said, I have a lot of respect for Matt LaFleur. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the league, and that would just be a massive win for the Bears. Now, I think a lot of things would have to go right for that to happen. But yeah, I do think that the pressure is on the Packers to win this game because they should. They're the more established team, right? The Bears, this is all new for the Bears. They're not the playoff experienced team. The Packers have been in the playoffs 2 seasons prior to this, right? So, or maybe I think it's 3 seasons prior to this. So, yeah, they're definitely the more they're the team I think that needs to win this more. But obviously, you want to win in the Bears situation because you're in a very good spot. You're the 2nd seed. So a lot of the playoffs will have to be played for Soldier Field if you advance, and that's always a very good sign. All right, Snyder, I think that's going to be it for us today. So I really hope we're going to be texting throughout the week, but I'm really excited for you to experience the playoff atmosphere. I'm really happy for you that you were able to go to this game in person. Yeah,
so I will be tailgating. I'm leaving work early. We will be at the South McCormick lot at 3 p.m. Full tailgate rolling. My uncle at big Chevy Silverado. Have the grill. Probably have a TV going, some bags going, plenty of food, plenty of beer. Anyone is more than welcome to come. Bears are on the house. Probably some burgers, brats, dogs on the house. Shoot me a DM if you want to link up. I will be there at 3 up until the game. So I'll be partying hard. Not too hard though, because I do want to remember the game and be locked in. But yeah, we'll be partying a little bit prior, but not too hard, but right in that sweet spot.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Well, until we meet again to hopefully recap a Bears playoff victory, keep it real and bear down.
Bear down.